Hello everyone, welcome to Module 4 out of 5, Teaching and Learning with Social Media via Multimedia Presentation. So we're going to be covering all those topics in this one short lesson. And so I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation, and I suggest you do the same so that your links are active. Okay, Module 4, again, Teaching and Learning with Social Media via Multimedia Presentations. Right, here's what we're going to be doing through this module as an overview. I'm going to give you a little bit of multimedia theory and connecting you to some of the best practices, so translating that theory into practice. And then as well as applying some of the social media for teaching and learning to what you've previously learned. And then reflecting, we have some essential discussion board questions for you, and then I'm going to give you some step-by-step instructions on how to be very successful with this module. Okay, here's our standards. We tie everything back to the standards, and we use the International Society for Technology and Education Standards. This is Standard 2, Design and Develop Digital Age Learning Experiences and Assessments. So you certainly will be doing that, as well as learning how to do that with your students in your future classroom. To learn more about those standards, you should be pretty familiar, comfortable with them, at the 6 of them at this point. But go ahead and visit there if you want more information. And please remember that ISTE has standards for students, for teachers, for coaches, for administrators. They've been leading this sector for a very long time, so they've got the best standards on what exceptional learning technologies looks like. Introduce some theory. Here we go. Back to your textbook. For this module, you're going to be reading chapters 9 through 10, and we're looking a lot at adaptive technologies there, and so go ahead and read those chapters, and then you're going to have some discussion board questions about that. So some of our discussion board questions we're going to be dealing with, and I wanted to introduce them in the beginning so that you can kind of have them rolling in the back of your brain for when you get to them, and throughout the lesson. So number 1, what are 2 to 3 benefits or drawbacks of using social media for your classroom, for students and parents, or for the community? Just give me, again, 2 to 3 benefits. Why would somebody do this? Why have all these people decided to use social media throughout the nation and internationally in their classroom? And then what are some of the drawbacks, or a drawback to doing that? What concerns might you have, or what maybe horror stories have you heard while using social media in your classroom? And then number 2, list 3 to 5 multimedia presentation tools that you will likely use in your classroom. Of course, you're going to pick one for this lesson, but then I want you to have kind of a bucket list, or a toolkit of 3 to 5 that you can refer to once you get launched into your own classroom, and you'll have those ready to go. And I'm going to give you a list of close to 100 of those tools. So number 3, list 3 to 5 social media tools that you will likely use in your classroom. And so again, you had in question number 2, you had multimedia presentation tools, and also you're going to list 3 to 5 social media tools that you may consider likely will use in your class. And then number 4, what are 3 to 5 ways to keep yourself safe and others safe online while using social media in your classroom? Most school districts have an acceptable use policy, a responsible use policy. My students will be writing or adapting an existing acceptable use. The newer term is responsible use, but it's the same thing. And if you can get access to one of those, that would be great. You can also Google them online. If you have access to a local school district one, that would be really cool for you to see how the local school district deals with this. And number 5, please share 5 key learnings from our textbook, chapters 9 through 10. So you're going to read those 2 chapters and just pick out 5 things you learned that you want to share that might be helpful for your other students. And we can kind of, what they would say, round robin or jigsaw the reading. Okay. All right, multimedia presentation best practices. Here's what we're going to be working. Now, I learned about presentations then when I was doing my doctorate back in 2010 to 2013, And Gar Reynolds with Presentation Zen really was leading the market then and leading the community on design for presentations back then, and I still think that holds true. So here's a link to his book. If I don't require that you buy the books or the resources I give you. Most of the resources I give you are free because of, I know cost is an issue for all of us. So this is not required by any stretch, but it is highly recommended. One of the biggest issues for teachers, for educators this day and age, is not knowing how to design good presentations. And I just sat through earlier in the month an event, and the presenter had a PhD, a doctorate, and the presentation, my undergrad students have presented better than that PhD did. And there's simple tactics that I'm hoping you're going to learn. The key is less is more. And so please at least access this link to Amazon and flip through. Sometimes they'll give you a sample, so let me just look at this one again. You can often get here's a Kindle version's only $12, but oftentimes if you haven't seen Amazon, you can look inside and at least look at their tables of contents. They have, in the print version, they have 94 used for just $7. I think this book is well worth $7 if you have it. And then I also have a PDF in the presentation that I'll share with you as well. But anyhow, this book is well worth the $7 or the Kindle version of $13. And wanted you to know about that. Okay. Here is a PDF, as I just alluded to, so you can click on that. And this is kind of a quick start guide, a fact guide of presentations and the key items that the author, Mr. Gar, goes over in the book. And so even if you can't buy the book, here are the quick start guide. Note, just read through, and during your presentation, whether you use Microsoft PowerPoint or Prezi or HaikuDeck, just these design principles will go throughout any tool that you use. So this is best practices, and then you pick whatever tool you use, and this will apply to all of them. Also note that he has suggested readings here, and so if you want to expand, if you're going to do a lot of public speaking, a lot of video recording, a lot of online teaching like I do, you're going to want to investigate this whole kind of presentation design sector much more than the average person. It's still important if you're doing face-to-face teaching at K to 12, but it is critical that you understand good design, presentation design principles. If you're teaching online, if you're going to do a flipped classroom or a blended classroom, you'll need to know how to do this. Here's some websites for you. Gar Reynolds, he's the author of Presentation Zen. Edward Tuff is a lead. I've met him in Los Angeles back in 2012 or 2013. Leading thinker on design and using graphical images to represent data. Excellent stuff. So go ahead and go through those. Okay, back to our presentation. Okay, and then another great book, a leading book in the sector that's pretty easy to wrap your brain around and implement the strategies that they suggest, is the Non-Designer's Design book. They have an e-textbook for $12.60. I am not going to go. We're only spending a short amount of time on design. And again, if you're going to be doing a lot of design in any regard, you'll want to become way more familiar, whether it's website design, presentation design, whatever. Robin Williams, not the actor, wrote this book, and this is the 4th edition. And so here you can look in his book. Here's the table of contents, which is nice. I can do this for free. He talks about proximity and alignment and repetition and contrast. So folks that do graphic design for their full degree, they really hit each one of these areas very repetitively and at a very deep level. We're just doing an overview level. I'm giving you the high points about design. review of the 4 design principles: contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. You're going to see that again later. Using color, etc., extra tips and tricks. So at least look through the table of contents here. I highly suggest, if you have the resources, to purchase this book. It is a good one to have on hand. I have it in both print and electronic format. You may put it as your wish list. Now, I have a wish list in Amazon, and so you can create your lists. And so for all these books that I'm recommending for you for EDUC 3313, you can have an EDUC 3313 list, and or even a Southeastern list, and any of the books that you aren't ready to buy that but you still want to bookmark for future, then you can create a list. And so you just name it. It's a wish list or a shopping list, either one. You're going to make it private, actually, and create the list. So for this one, because I created the list while I was on this book, it went ahead and added the book to that list for me. But anyhow, that's a good little backdoor tip about curating lists of books that you aren't ready to buy. I bought a lot of books during my last degree and the previous ones too, and some, I referenced some more than others, but it's good to have, this in the back of your mind if you're not going to buy it right now. Okay, and notice that they have spiral bound, they have a textbook. I'm sure there's a Kindle version somewhere in here as an option. I think I just saw it when we clicked inside. Oh, here's the Kindle book. Okay, and it's only $12.60. So, okay. All right, back to our presentation. You just saw in the previous, where I went over the proximity, the 4 key principles of good design as told by Robin Williams, author of that book. And then here's Lisa Dolly, and she is a lead thinker in digital education, online learning, etc., and instructional technologies. And she has this presentation she makes available through SlideShare, which this is where a lot of professionals share presentations of all different factors. If you want to see the good, bad, and ugly of presentations that various folks have shared, you can go to slideshare.net and pick a few, maybe search for learning technologies and see what people are sharing. Excuse me. So here is Lisa Dolly's presentation on craft design, which is those 4 principles outlined by Robin Williams. And so here's how you scroll through it. This is in SlideShare, which I guess is now owned by LinkedIn. Contrast, and she shows you some examples of contrast. Repetition, and defines that, gives you a sample of what that looks like. Alignment, defines that, gives you some examples, some more alignments. Proximity, so the acronym CRAP stands for contrast, repetition, and I've got the alignments, and proximity. Okay, and so go ahead and look through that and make sure that in the back of your mind, while you're creating your presentation, and the presentation's the tool, whatever tool you choose, Prezi, PowerPoint, whatever, and then the content in the presentation is your social media, right, which we're going to be talking about as well. Okay, we're combining a lot of points in this module, like we often do, because I have so much to cover in short amount of time with you that I want to make sure that you're at least prepared to run your class with technology as best as possible. Okay. Another tool or another best practice kind of theory basic that's out there is Slideology. It's linked to in Amazon. You can look inside the book via Amazon's website. And the art and science of creating great presentation. Nancy Duarte, I believe she worked on several presidential campaigns and designed presentations for them. And so she's definitely a leading thinker. She's had a lot of practical experience, and her book's inexpensive as well. And so you can go ahead and preview that. It's not required to purchase at all. You're required to purchase one book for this course, which is the Integrating Technology into the Classroom that we covered at the beginning of the presentation. Resonate's another one of her books, visual storytelling that transform audiences, right? The goal for storytelling is to create a transformational change. So, And then here's a little bit more about Presentation Zen. And this is by Jennifer Gonzalez, and she did a review of Presentation Zen, and she kind of gave you the high points, the low points of Presentation Zen that's covered in Presentation Zen, but she did it in a different way. And so this is still about Presentation Zen, but she kind of goes a little bit more in depth and is a little bit more explicit about what you should and shouldn't do. So go ahead and read that article, and you can watch her video here as well. And this cult of pedagogy, pedagogy is instruction for teaching instruction methods for children, for youth, and then andragogy is instruction and teaching of adults. And so cult of pedagogy is the group of folks who focus on K-12 teaching. So go ahead and watch her video, and then when you're finished with that, you can go back to our presentation. Okay. And then social media tools. So now we're getting to the content. That was the presentation tool and best practices, etc., and a little bit of theory for presentations. And now switching over to the content, which is social media is what we're going to be talking about. Okay. And here is a new resource. This is the first time I've shared it with you all. Social Media in Education, a resource toolkit. Now there is just a ton. If you do a Google search for social media in education, you'll get millions of results. This was a one-stop shopping guide for a toolkit of how to use social media in your classroom and education. It goes over, so let's just go here real quick, and I'll hit the high points with you. So here is the topics throughout this, and notice that the way this website is, this web page is designed, it's really long and lengthy. If you scroll down, it kind of goes forever, and they have embedded videos and all kinds of extra tools, but they make all of those resources, all that information available via the category as a clickable link here. And so if I click on this link, it'll take me to that section, creating social media guidelines. And note that that was one of the questions, one of your essential questions at the start of this presentation. So now you don't have to read every one of these items. There's a lot of information. We could do a whole class, maybe a whole 2 classes on social media in education and presentations actually. We're not going to do that. I wanted you to kind of just get your feet in the water. You don't have to dive fully in at this point. So go ahead and just pick 1 or 2 or maybe 3 if you're a fast reader for how to create social media guidelines, because the school you're working in hopefully will have these guidelines already lined out for you. But I wouldn't guarantee it, especially if you're going to go work in a remote rural school, right? And so Vicki Davis says all of these folks are well regarded. I would try to go with somebody more recent, maybe 2013, 2014, but the fact that they still have all these here means that they're good. So here's a PDF version. You can download the whole thing about how to create those guidelines. I created the guidelines for several schools. And really it's about keeping your students safe and secure online. We talked about that in the previous digital citizenship module that we worked on. And it's also about keeping your school safe from any legal liability by keeping your students safe. So, so most schools will have some sort of contract the students sign in order to limit their liability or ensure that the students are being as safe as possible. Okay, so they want you to put in your email address, and then you can download their toolkit there. Notice that this was produced in collaboration with Facebook. So, so that means it's probably pretty good. Facebook has unlimited resources, and generally, while I don't agree with everything the big corporations do, like Facebook and Google and Apple, because they have the resources to employ a lot of great thinkers, they generally their resources are better than what one individual could create. Anyhow, so go ahead and download this or choose one of the other resources that are here. And again, you do want to stay as current as you can, strictly because, not that this isn't good information, all of it's excellent information, but the technology and social media has changed dramatically in the past 6 years since this was published in 2011. Now here's their section on student engagement with social media. So it's a little bit more theory and practice. Mimi Ito is excellent. I've met her. She was a colleague of one of my professors, and I've had several meetings with her. She's excellent. Wrote a book, several good papers, and several good books. A lead professor at UC Irvine now, University of California at Irvine. And then there's blogging and how to co-op students' favorite social media tools. That's always a good thing, how to use their favorite social media tools in your classroom to provide and promote engagement. Selecting social media tools. Here's 50 tools for differentiating instruction. Differentiating is always a good thing, as you learned in your lesson plan. And then here's Google Hangouts, etc. So engaging your school community through social media, creating a dynamic Facebook page, sorry. Here's your homeschooling community connections. That's always, your principal, your administrator is always going to ask you, how are you connecting your class with their students' home and the rest of the teachers at the school, and as well as the community. And so here's some tips and tricks for you on that. Social media for professional development. Yes, excellent. How do I get a PLN? You should know what a PLN is because we covered it. And digital citizenship, you should know a lot about that already. And here's some more resources for you. Okay, so here's some content for you. And I'm looking for you to particularly choose a social media tool. And I don't care what tool it is, of course, as long as it allows or it provides affordances for students to be safe and secure online. But you're going to basically create a how-to, how you're going to use that social media tool in your classroom. So that way when you start in your classroom, you'll have a tool already ready to go. All right, and then here are some tools for your presentation. Sway is published by Microsoft. It's pretty new. I've had several students use it. They love it. You can create reports, presentations, newsletters, personal stories. Sway.com. Here's a bunch of many other multimedia presentation tools that you can choose. These would, instead of doing a PowerPoint, you would do an Animoto, or I just saw a Canva last night. That's becoming more popular. Google Slides, certainly you can do that via your Google account. Keynote is an Apple product. I believe it's free now on iPads or iOS devices. Any Apple product, any Apple tool. And then Powtoon is fun for, especially for younger grades. It's more kind of cartoony based, but you're welcome to choose that too. Prezi, Slide Dog is I'm seeing more of. Anyhow, you can pick any of this. I wanted to give you this this table because it shows you, is this tool available on Mac or Windows? What sort of tablet is it available on? Android, Chromebook, etc., iPad. And so this is a kind of table that will help you choose which tool you want to use. Okay, here's Google Docs, and they do have presentations templates already created for you. And here's some education ones, and then here's a proposal, a lookbook, etc. Okay. Explain Everything is one that's still being widely used. I was just at EdCamp OKC, and one of the tools in their app Smackdown, where they share apps, was Explain Everything, and it's just getting better and better and better. So that's a tool that you can use for your presentation. Prezi, of course, has been around for quite a while and still is doing very well. You can create a PowerPoint and then upload it to Prezi and then add some of the Prezi features to it. A lot of folks like that. Haiku Deck is another one a lot of folks really like. And then this is SlideShare. I told you can view other folks' presentations and adapt them, give them credit, of course. And your discussion board questions. Okay. So here's the discussion board questions. Again, we talked about them as a reflection. During our introduction, we talked about them, and now you're going to reflect and answer those discussion board questions. And that discussion board is already up for you. And then we're going to extend out, and here's your step-by-step instructions for this assignment. Number one, you're going to select one of those tools, a Prezi, a Haiku Deck, explain everything, PowerPoint if you want, from PowerPoint 365. Sway is fine. And you're going to select and open that presentation template, okay? And then you can also have that side by side with your social media tool that you're going to use. Next, select a social media tool, whether that's Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook, to complete a teaching and learning presentation. You're going to summarize, you're going to edit, you're going to bullet point. Part of those best practices of creating a presentation are to limit the amount of words you have on the page. Now, for the most part, I would not have this many words on my presentation. This would be a standalone document, but I'm also going to provide you with that, okay? And again, I'm doing a teaching lesson, and so that changes the game a little bit with the presentation. But if I were speaking in front of a large audience that just came to hear me talk about something, I would not have these many words on a presentation. Okay, so minimal words, and you're going to show, not tell. I love show and tell, but here you're going to show through pictures, through tables, through graphs, through images, through videos. Videos is king right now. And but if you're going to use words, you're going to summarize them. You will not have full sentences. You're going to edit, you're going to bullet point, etc. And then you're going to have as little as text as possible is the goal. Number three, on each one of your slides, and I'm going to tell you what the slides are in just a minute, on each one of the slides, again, you're going to have some sort of image, a photo, a graphic, a table, a video. And here are the slides you're going to have. So you're going to have a title, just like I do. The topic, your name, hopefully your picture. People like pictures, so they know who they're dealing with. And then you're going to have an overview slide, just like you see with me. What are you going to be covering? So just like when I was teaching K-12, when my students walked into the classroom, I would get there an hour before they would, and I would have our agenda for the day, an overview for the day on the board, standards we're going to cover, etc., etc. So they knew what to expect, right? And then you're going to do an introduction, kind of help people ground their feet in your topic, in your social media tool that you're going to be using, and give them some sort of anticipatory set is the word that used to be used. Help them apply or think back to other information they already feel comfortable with, they already know, and link that to what they're going to be learning. So it's kind of a bridge from previous knowledge to current or new knowledge. And then you're going to connect. So a video of their how-to video facts page on the social media site that you say you're going to use Twitter. Twitter has a getting started guide or a quick start guide of a video of how to use their tool. That's why I've never taught students how to use any particular tool, because every tool out there has a quick start guide, a getting started video, a facts page, whatever. Take screenshots of those, link to that video, take a screenshot of the video like I do, and then put a link to it. Or if it allows you, you can download the video and embed it in your presentation. A lot of times the maker of the webmaster does not provide those videos for download. So you just have to do what I do, which is take a screenshot of the video and then link to it via your presentation. And then apply. State how you'll use this tool in your classroom. So on your apply slide, you're going to briefly state and just do keywords. You're going to use it for homework, for teaching new concepts, for checking their understanding. Okay. So maybe list 3 to 5 ways you're going to use that tool in your classroom. Maybe you're going to post your homework there, so the students have to go to Twitter to look at their homework for the day. And then their parents can log into Twitter to see their homework for the day. Maybe it's going to be a place where they publish their state reports, right? So they're doing, each one of them is assigned a state, they have to do a report, and they're going to upload that report to Google and then give you a link to it via Twitter. So you have all of their state reports on Twitter for them, okay? and then reflect your reflect slide. So you're going to state the broader educational use of the tools. So in general, what is the purpose of this tool? If you can think of a better way to, or better content to have on that reflect slide, I'm open to it. But you kind of want to have, the purpose of the slide is to kind of make meaning what you've just done. So maybe you can also reflect on what this is likely to mean for your classroom. How is using this tool, Twitter, in your classroom likely to shift the pedagogy of the room of your classroom? And then your extend slide, so you have there, how are you going to keep students safe and secure while using that tool? So how are you going to limit access to, or if at all, how are you going to limit access to your students via that Twitter page? Because you don't want any random person who knows where logging into that Twitter page and gaining private backdoor access to your students, where they could private message them, or they could steal important information about the students, and then the students aren't safe. So how are you going to keep your students safe at any age, whether they're 5 years old or 15 years old or 19 years old? How are you going to keep your students safe while you're using this tool in your classroom? Okay. Number 4, using the view and slide sorter screen, reorder your slides for clarity, coherence, and flow as needed. So maybe you're going to add in an extra slide in the connect portion of your, and remember this stands for Introduction, Connect, Apply, Reflect, Extend. The acronym for that is ICARE, right? Which is, we talked about that in the beginning module. So if you're going to add in extra slides, maybe you didn't need to do a little bit of reordering or whatever, but just look at the slide sorter screen to make sure it all makes sense, that your flow and the clarity and the coherence makes sense. Same thing you would do with a paper that you wrote. And then number 5, add in any transitions or animations as appropriate via the tool that you're using, but be careful. You don't want a lot of busyness and disjointed action in the presentation, so don't have things flying in and doing flips and flying out with every slide. So maybe just a few or here or there to make sure you still have their attention. So make it add to the presentation and not distract from it. And then number 6, upload the link to your presentation to Blackboard. So we have a submission link for the assignment in Blackboard. So please provide the link to your presentation, whether it's in Prezi, whether it's in your Google Drive, whether it's in your Microsoft 365 account, Sway, whatever. Just give me a link. You aren't uploading a document to Blackboard to this presentation. You're just giving me a link to the presentation. Okay. All right. Here's my contact information. You know how to get a hold of me if you have problems or issues, and happy to respond. And I look forward to seeing your presentation and seeing how you're going to use social media in your classroom. You all are doing fabulous so far, and thanks for your attention.